next speaker is my awesome friend, Dr. Richard Gearhart, who I believe will also be a professor. Well, Aaron is not supposed to say that, but congratulations to him as well.
Kick ass. I have to go after Dr. Macheka. I'm not as likable, so that's a little problematic. What I want to do today is I want to focus on where we've seen growth here in Kern County across industries, how wages have changed, how employment has changed, and then a little bit of economic uncertainty. And so on this chart, here is real GDP. And real GDP is an important measure because it takes into account purchasing power. If real GDP increases, you're able to buy more stuff. And what we've seen here in Kern County, regardless of how you look at real GDP, our standards of living have improved considerably, regardless of the time span you look at. Since 2001, our standards of living here in Kern County have nearly doubled, which is tremendous economic growth. Since 2019, which included the 2022 Biden administration inflation, we've seen real GDP growth of over 3%. So even though we've seen the highest inflation rates in nearly 4 decades, we are still appreciably better off here in Kern County than we were before. Well, what have been the top growth sectors and why it's important? So since 2001, utilities has been the top economic growth sector, increasing by over 300%. And that's important because, as Dr. Macheka pointed out, that means in-migration of individuals into this area. You only need utilities if your area is growing, and we've seen that growth. The second top growth sector here in Kern County has been ag, increasing by 330%. We are one of the breadbaskets of not only America, but the entire world. And we continue to dominate that landscape. Information technology is the third highest growth sector. That has been up 264% since 2001. Again, this only occurs in growing, diversifying economies. These are all trends we want to see. Fourth, healthcare and social assistance. That is up 150%. That is important because we need more doctors, we need more healthcare practitioners, we need more healthcare facilities to engage with our growing population and take care of the disease burdens as they appear. Our fifth top growth sector, arts, entertainment, and recreation. Growing areas need amenities, and we are growing those. We are attracting individuals from other areas of the state, and we are bringing with them a growth in amenities, an increase in the demand for products and services that you utilize in your leisure time. But even if we look at the bottom 5 growth sectors since 2001, notice all the numbers are strictly positive. Every industry in Kern County since 2001 has grown. Mining, oil, and gas is only up 13.4%. That is in large part due to regulatory oversight or overstepping on the part of the state of California. Finance and insurance is up 14.4%. Construction is up 20%. Government, you want to see government kind of near the bottom. We don't like the Leviathan, but government's up 26.3%. And even taking into account the COVID pandemic, which eviscerated restaurants and accommodations, hotels, that has still seen tremendous economic growth. So we've seen a lot of economic growth. Now, as we all know, the COVID pandemic was relatively unpleasant. Us economists call that a supply shock. And what usually happens with a supply shock is you see reductions in economic activity, higher prices, which is what we saw. So let's look at the top 5 growth sectors since right before the COVID pandemic. Real estate, rental, and leasing, that is up 30.5%. That only increases with in-migration of individuals looking to buy and to rent. This is incredibly important. We need growth in housing to make sure that we don't make this area unaffordable for residents. We've seen that. Second top growth sector since 2019, arts, entertainment, and recreation. Again, this is only positive. The COVID pandemic had the chance to ruin a lot of business models in this economic space. A reduction in the number of events that they could hold, a reduction in the foot traffic, and yet this sector has prospered. Transportation and warehousing. We have unique geographical features here in Kern County that makes our industries go. We have oil, we have ag, and we have the nice ability to be located close to two of the major ports in the United States, Long Beach and Los Angeles. We have the unique capability to transport goods up to Northern California, to transport goods to Las Vegas. We are the fourth largest economy in the world, the state of California. Transportation and warehousing is a major player. And we've seen this with growth in distribution centers in Shafter, in the city of Bakersfield itself, at the bottom of the grapevine. Professional, scientific, and technical services, a growth in traditional white-collar jobs, which is important for the overall growth of an area. Lastly, a top 5 growth sector since 2019, healthcare and social assistance, which is again important if we are attracting more individuals to an area, and as populations age, health needs increase. Making sure we satisfy those health needs is vital to creating a vibrant economy. Again, there have been some sectors since COVID that have been negatively impacted. Ag, in part because of the 2018 tariffs and the retaliatory tariffs put into place in China. In other parts, water availability, so ag is down. Food manufacturing is down. That's a little problematic. Again, oil and gas extraction is down relatively significantly, even though we are still using more petroleum products on this planet than at any other point. We've decided to regulate ourselves out of that growth. Construction is down, and wholesale trade is down. So overall, the picture is good. We've seen lots of growth opportunities. So let's focus not just on what we produce, but the workers that we utilize to produce these products. And so I picked data from between January 2010 and the most recent data I could find, which is February 2025. We have 150,000 more people in the labor force. The labor force is comprised of people who have jobs and people who don't have jobs but are looking for jobs, the unemployed. We are seeing more people employed. There are 160,000 more workers in 15 years here in Kern County. It's about 15,000 new workers a year in a county of about 1 million people. That's a sizable uptick. There's actually also fewer individuals unemployed. Historically, Kern County tends to lead the state of California in unemployment rates. That link has been lessening as time has passed. Most, if not all, sectors here in Kern County since 2010 have seen job growth. The only sectors that have lost employment were, again, oil and gas extraction. That's, again, unfortunate, where we've lost about 2,300 jobs. Food manufacturing, where we've lost about 1,300 jobs. That's comparable to what we've seen in ag. Department stores have seen reductions in employment. Since 2010, that's to be expected, the growth of online retail, Temu, Shein, all those other fun little things that people buy. Information technology has lost 1,100 jobs, finance and insurance 700, and then management 400. But overall, we've seen economic growth and employment in nearly every sector here in Kern County, regardless of how you measure it. What have been the top 5 employment growth industries since 2010? Healthcare and social assistance has added 23,400 jobs. Again, to satisfy the health needs of a growing population, you need more healthcare providers at every level. Medical assistants all the way up to specialists, and we've seen that. Trade, transportation, and utilities, 18,800 jobs. Transportation and warehousing is one of the growth industries here in Kern County. It's growing in terms of what we're producing. It's growing in terms of jobs. Utilities, employment growth has increased because we are building more facilities for individuals who want to move and live here. Farming, ag has added since 2010 about 14,300 jobs. Accommodation and food places, restaurants and hotels have added about 8,200 jobs. You only add hotels and restaurant jobs when consumers in an area are willing to spend, when you see tourism revenues coming. So those are good numbers. And then retail trade, which again, only increases if individuals in an area have enough disposable income to go out shopping. Retail trade has increased by about 6,000 jobs. So we've seen growth in employment from a number of sectors that indicate a bright future here in Kern County. You can do the same thing since 2019, and again, we broadly see the same level of analysis. We are growing in areas that signify a growth in population, more disposable income, and an interest in moving to the area. Unfortunately, since the COVID pandemic, there have been some job losses. Farming has lost 5,400 jobs since 2019, but again, they're still net positive relative to 2010. Oil has again lost 2,700 jobs. Food manufacturing, finance and insurance, clothing accessories, shoe and jewelry, and IT have lost relatively few number of jobs, but still significant. And so, again, any basic study of economics says the more people you bring into an area, you have to worry about wages falling. You have more competition for your work, you might see wages falling. So let's take a look at wage trends. And so, again, we talk about real wages, where real wages just adjust for purchasing power. And so on this slide, what we've seen is we've seen the West Coast Inflation Index since 2019. Since 2019, overall cost of living in 5 years has increased by 23.5%. That's significant. The Federal Reserve would have aimed for about 10%. So we're nearly double what it should have been. Food at home cost of living increased by 28%. Food away from home cost of living increased by 32%. That's in large part due to minimum wage laws. But there's also been an increase in shelter or housing cost of living by 26%. So we've seen relatively rapid price growth. Well, here are average wages in 2019 and 2024 across a number of occupations. And the smiley face tells you whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Broadly, overall in Kern County, all occupations have maintained roughly the same purchasing power. So overall, roughly, I can buy about the same amount of stuff in 2019 as I could in 2024. Teachers have seen a relatively sizable decline. Home health and personal care aides have. Healthcare practitioners, food prep and serving, and farming have all seen increases. Do the same thing with other occupations. The oil sector continues to show real wage growth, but production occupations have decreased. Transportation has decreased. Insurance and financial services have decreased. Well, the problem at looking with an average is an average is influenced by outliers. And inflation is highly regressive. Inflation really impacts the lowest income. So let's take a look at the lowest income wages here in Kern County. And this is the 25th percentile. So this is the bottom 25% of wage earners. And regardless of which measure you look at, regardless of which occupation, for the lowest income earners here in Kern County, we have seen real wage growth. Purchasing power has outpaced inflation. That's important. It may not be enough. It certainly probably doesn't feel like enough, but we have relatively maintained our purchasing power. Again, the only industry for the lowest income earners are insurance, financial services, securities, and commodities. So there's a lot of optimism about the economy here in Kern County. What I want to do is obviously talk about a hot button topic. And the reason why I want to talk about this hot button topic is because tariffs are a big deal right now. And so what do we know? Historically, tariffs have never been a good thing. Smoot-Hawley, the tariffs in the 1930s, both worsened and lengthened the Great Depression. Every study that we've looked at as economists have found that tariffs lower growth, raise prices, don't lead to reshoring of production or jobs, are generally worse off for consumers. And so why do I bring this up? Well, I bring this up because if you took out the impact of the trade war from the GDP numbers that came out yesterday, real GDP in Q1 would have grown 3.5%. That is astonishingly high. Q4 of 2024, the last quarter of the Biden administration, real GDP grew by a little over 2%. So we had the possibility of pretty good growth opportunities here in both Kern County and the United States had we not engaged in the trade war, especially with the broad trends towards government deregulation and increasing the efficiency of government. And so here's a few numbers as to why I'm a little bit worried. So if you look, GDP, Q1 GDP decreased by 0.3%. It's the first contraction since 2022. Shipping total equivalent units, which are just shipping containers, have decreased by 35 to 44%. The ADP, which is private employment numbers, came in half of what was expected today. Weekly job claims for unemployment are 7% higher. We are at the highest number of continuing unemployment job claims since 2021. McDonald's today reported that sales are down 3.6%. But there's not just these common measures that economists look at. We have these fun little indices. There's something called an underwear index. The underwear index, as we all know, males don't like to replace their clothes. The only time that males replace their clothes is when it has enough holes or your wife throws it out. Male underwear sales are down 6%. There's a beer index. Craft beer sales are indicative of discretionary income. Craft beer sales are down. There's two other indices. There's a brothel index. The brothel index measures spending in Las Vegas brothels. That's down 20% this year compared to year on year. There's also something called the strip club index. I kid you not, these exist. The strip club index in Las Vegas is down 12%. Those are all indicative, those are all warning signs that are flashing. And so what I really want to highlight here in this presentation with a little bit of remaining time is that Kern County is unfortunately uniquely positioned so that we will disproportionately suffer from tariffs. In large part because of our dominance in ag, relative to the state of California, we have 7 times more of our GDP come from ag. We're also going to disproportionately suffer because we have less manufacturing. That's kind of the whole idea of tariffs, is to bring back manufacturing. But also because we are significantly higher in trade, transportation, and warehousing. So with my last slide, this is what I anticipate the end effects of tariffs and trade war to be. Where in ag, I would expect losing up to 2,200 jobs due to the trade war, where average pay would fall by about $600, GDP in ag would fall by about $300 million. It's a pretty sizable number. Manufacturing would hopefully benefit. Now, manufacturing, you earn a lot of money. The median wage is close to 6 figures, which is a very good income in Kern County. There would be a relatively small increase in manufacturing jobs of about 300. Pay would increase relatively substantially, 1,600. Trade, transportation, and warehousing, that growth industry we've seen, unfortunately, we'd lose 1,400 jobs, where each worker in that job would lose about $1,350. Again, tariffs are a regressive tax. Tariffs are passed through to consumers. Regardless of what you're told, consumers pay tariffs. I would expect real incomes in Kern County to fall by about $1,450 per year, which is basically out of every $100 in your wallet, you burn $2. It's not to say that tariffs are a bad economic tool or that tariffs are useless, but we need to eliminate the economic uncertainty surrounding what's happening. We need clarity. Businesses need clarity. Consumers need clarity. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.